Good morning. This is Deborah Pratt Johnson Burns, and I'm here today with Harold A. Bellacci of the law firm of Harold A. Bellacci PC, based in Carle Place, New York. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic that not a lot of people know about, and that is elder law. It's a very specific division of the law industry, and he's going to share with us how to incorporate it into estate planning and what elements of it are important to you and your family. So I'm going to introduce Harold, but momentarily. However, I wanted to also share with our audience today that I am launching a financial freedom education series and entrepreneur spotlight series for 2022 on Wednesday, February 9th at 5:30. We would love to have you join us every Wednesday at 5:30. Please RSVP to my website, www.literacytolegacymentors.net, and you will see where to click on the events tab and sign up, RSVP, and then we will send you your private Zoom link, and we will go from there, and we look forward to seeing you then. So I will definitely kick this off with a warm welcome to my new strategic partner, Harold A. Bellacci. And Harold, tell me a little bit about, first, how did you get into trust and estate planning and then break into elder law separately? I'm curious to know that, as are our listeners and viewers. Thank you.
Good morning, Deborah. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I've been practicing law for about 20 years, and estate planning was always an interest to me. It was one of the things that I focused on in law school. I took every class available. So you come out of law school and you understand estate planning, wills and trusts. Those are the documents that we're doing, and of course, estate administration. But it was fairly early on in my career. I was engaged to participate in a guardianship proceeding, which we'll talk further about later. And the scenario was, and I think this is a nice setup for our conversation, the person who was the subject of the guardianship proceeding was a 77-year-old woman, and she'd gone out to buy groceries, and she never returned to her house. They found her passed out in a parking lot. She was hospitalized. She had no next of kin that they knew of. So after about 6 weeks, the CEO of the hospital she was in commenced a proceeding, a guardianship proceeding, to have a guardian appointed over her. And I was engaged to participate in that proceeding. And that really awakened me to the area of elder law outside of just the estate planning part of it. Because here we had a woman with no family and resources and no one to make decisions for her, no one to take care of her. But it was going to become the burden of the state to take care of her. So that made me shift my practice focus a little bit to start getting clients aware of, you need to have your documents in order, but you also need to have your team available to take care of you and watch after you as you age. So that was sort of that moment where the light bulb went off, and I said, we've got to focus more on the human element of estate planning. And that's how my practice got into elder law.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that explanation and that tremendous example. Wow. I'm sorry to say, there are probably many elderly men and women in that exact situation. So that's a very timely and relevant. In terms of elder law, tell us a little bit about, I know it encompasses a tremendous amount beyond wills and trusts. And could we talk a little bit about, since you've already segued into guardianship, tell us a little bit about like trustees and appointed guardians and things like that, and how people go about doing that, even as early as 50, 60, so that anytime anything happens to them, they are well taken care of by those appointees that they trust, that can handle their affairs, such as yourself. An attorney can be an appointee for that matter. So let's talk a little bit about that and then broaden into the topic.
Okay, so the challenge is, there isn't always a challenge. Most of my clients have that support structure in place. So I do for example, if I do a consult with a married couple, there's a presumption that the spouse is going to serve as a healthcare agent, as an agent under a power of attorney, as an executor or executrix of the last will and testament, or as a trustee of a revocable living trust. It's those alternate participants in many cases whether they're children of the couple or if the couple doesn't have children, who are the next people in line to make decisions regarding your care if you're hospitalized?
Mm-hmm.
Who's there to pay your bills? And that would be an agent under a power of attorney. And can you trust those people?
Right.
That's a big
That's
thing.
the hard part.
I've seen, I'll be the first one to tell you, everyone needs a power of attorney, but I hate powers of attorney because it gives the agent such broad power over the
Right.
individual.
Right.
And bad things happen to good people. I've seen a lot of cases where people have abused their authority as an agent. I've had to testify in several trials where people were accused of abusing their authority under a power of attorney. And it's fascinating. So then you have, moving on to a last will and testament, you have an executor or an executrix. And under a trust, you have successor trustees. So who is that person next in line? And the default isn't always a child, interestingly. Parents love their children, but they know that they might fight, they might disagree, or just they might not have the ability to handle the responsibility.
Right. More than likely the latter.
The affairs. Yeah, it's very challenging. So this compounds then when we start talking about people who don't have a surviving spouse, who don't have a child, who don't have a sibling. And all those don'ts that I just enumerated, they compound as we age. So you might have that structure in place when you're 60, 70, 80, but now you're 95 and everybody's gone. And that's where we lead into my example that we started with, a single woman living alone with no support structure. And that's when courts get involved. And I spend a lot of my time in my practice helping people stay out of court.
Yes.
And meaning a
Great.
guardianship proceeding,
Yes.
a probate proceeding, anything. We don't, and the reason is we don't want other people making decisions for us.
No, absolutely not. So perhaps you're recommending, if I understand correctly, that you would suggest to your clients, whatever they may be 40, they may be 60, they may be 80 or older, that they actually review these respective ancillary people and appointees with you. And as you said, they change perhaps every decade or maybe even every 5 years.
Yeah, I think every 5 years, or when people leave my office, I say, look, this reflects a contemporaneous declaration, meaning this is what you were thinking today.
Right.
As life changes, you need to review these documents. And I think, as we know, the past 2.5 years, life changes. We all have whiplash from the amount of changes that are being thrown at us on a daily basis.
That's very true.
Families change. People get divorced, people pass, and these don't even have to be life-altering changes. It could be, my brother moved to Europe, so it might not be convenient for him to be my primary healthcare agent because it's a time difference. There's a lot to be said, even in this world where you and I are in different places right now talking. I want someone near me in that emergency. So that's what we're planning for. We're planning for worst case emergencies.
Okay.
So those people who you trust should be close by. I know it's not always possible, but even little things like geography can cause you to amend your documents.
Sounds fantastic. Could you tell us specifically, what does elder care encompass beyond wills and trusts? That would be helpful for the audience.
I'd love to, and this is such a great question because so many individuals focus on just the documents alone, and retitling assets into a trust, meaning retitling a house and some savings accounts or brokerage accounts. When I think of elder law and how I practice elder law, it's a team approach. Okay. So I want your entire sphere of influence involved in the decision making. Wow. I'm your attorney, but I want your accountant in there. I want your financial advisor. And sometimes we'll bring in the people who are being appointed. It's not often that I'll get healthcare professionals, but it's a team approach so that we're looking forward towards taking care of the person.
Right.
And so that's when elder law starts to transition into who's going to take care of you when you can't take care of yourself.
Okay.
Do you have long-term care insurance?
Hmm.
Have you prepaid a funeral arrangement? Do you think you're going to assisted living? And is it full-on assisted living, or is it a transitional assisted living?
Hmm.
Will the resources be there to pay for your care? What
Mm-hmm.
happens when you run out of resources? So that's where elder care, it brings everything in to the consideration, not just, okay, I'm dead, here's where my money should go.
Right, exactly.
Because that's what
And
so much of estate planning is.
that's right. Do you feel that this industry has really been burgeoning in the past 10 years, perhaps? It's just become like a really more robust sector, if you will, of estate planning? That's
I
my
certainly think
feeling.
so.
That was
Um,
my feeling.
I completely agree. Consider I've been out of law school for 21 years. This wasn't something we talked about in law school, and it
Okay.
certainly wasn't something that was really a subject in the earlier part of my career. So I think this is something that's evolving, as you said, quite rapidly, actually.
As people get older and as more people live longer, right? Interesting.
People are
What?
living longer, um, and and their families are dying off, and
Mm,
they're developing cognitive disorders at earlier ages.
mm,
This is one of my biggest worries, and it's almost become an obsession for me, is these people in their 60s and 70s who can't take care of themselves but have no place to go. And
oh,
as a society, we don't really have a mechanism
we
for
don't.
taking care of them.
Mhm,
You've probably heard the phrase granny dumping, um,
mm.
where
Daycare,
people just, okay, come on, mom, we're going to the nursing home, boom, gone,
right,
goodbye, or come on, auntie, we're going here, and you never go home again. And really we've seen what goes on in nursing homes and
right.
assisted living facilities. So
Mhm.
if you're in a position to prevent that from happening to you, or to try to plan for those different contingencies, um, that's what you should do. And I shouldn't knock nursing homes. There's a role for them. There's a
That's right.
role for assisted living. I have a lot of clients in different types of tiered assisted living,
Mhm.
and they're very happy. They thrive because it gets them out of that lonely home. And
Yes,
if they work on it, there's new socialization. There's a
right,
new lease on life. There's 3 meals a day. There's, okay, at 10 o'clock we take our pills, and at 4 o'clock we take our pills. It's
right.
amazing how helpful some of these facilities can be. So don't make it sound like I'm bashing.
No, I understand, and
Uh,
that makes perfect sense. There's
Yeah,
also a major, I'd say it's an exodus, interestingly enough, as studying caregiving and elder care, because I've been in the industry as well, that people are moving out of nursing homes and back home to more community living with their friends and family, almost like a commune kind of scenario,
yeah.
which is right, frankly, quite attractive, you
I
know?
think it's fascinating, and I think that may be what the future brings. And I'll be very curious to see where it goes, because all of a sudden we reach a certain age, and now we're moving back in with non-relatives,
Right,
and maybe, um, not to analogize it to a fraternity house, but maybe you have a house mother there
right.
who you takes care of everyone.
That's
And
right.
these people, they can't live independently, but they don't need full services all the time. And maybe this collective housing, I think that's where the future may go. I
That's
really
interesting.
do.
I
It's
think
going to be very interesting.
yeah, people also need to understand that you are also a resource to them for choices. Because I think a lot of people don't understand, okay, you have assisted living, you have these communities we talked about, you have nursing homes, but they don't really know, well, where do I go and what do I do and when do I go there and how does that work? And I think those answers are as equally critical as the financial ones. You have become almost an emotional ballast to them as well as a financial and legal one, correct? So your role is rather broad.
It's very broad, and I appreciate you saying that, because a lot of people don't realize that. But that is a very important part of my practice, is helping people through the emotional part of aging and making decisions. And it's scary. And practitioners need to be mindful of this. You know, when you do the
Yes.
same thing every day, not that we become emotionally unsensitive or desensitized, but this is what I do all day. So
Right.
I don't feel the emotion, but you need to understand that not everybody does this every day. And people are coming to me for help in making really, really big decisions. So that bedside manner, if you will,
Yes.
is crucial to the
Absolutely
practice of
critical.
elder law. And by the way, lawyers aren't trained to have bedside manner.
Right.
You know,
I
so
understand.
that's where, you know, it takes a little practice, and you
That's
almost
right.
need to take that emotional IQ test.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then tell me, if you would, just to wrap this up a bit, what are the challenges facing your industry and facing people as they age, 60, 70, 80? What have you seen as far as trends are concerned?
I think the biggest issues are finances
Mm,
and uncertainty and fear. And those are three things that are really hard to overcome. Will I have enough money? The fluctuations in the stock market this month have been a big
dizzying.
concern. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. You turn the TV on, and 20 minutes later, there's been a 2 or 3% move.
Right.
That's not normal. But if you're on the cusp of some type of financial transition in your life, that could be very worrisome. So
Absolutely.
it's fear of the unknown. It's fear of loneliness. I
Mm,
think I think loneliness in the over 60 population is going to become a crisis.
oh,
It's lack of mental health considerations.
yes.
It's all those things that have to do with people's well-being
Hmm.
that worry me
Hmm.
the most.
And I think also, and I think this is the case for many people, whether you're 20, 30, 50, or 90, is the sense of community is so important. So whether you be religious, spiritual, or otherwise, whether it be a church or a community gathering or groups that you belong to, et cetera, as I said before, you know, you're a resource to help people and families and caregivers build that sense of community. Because I
I,
think it's healthy, it's mental health, and it really tees people up for a better life experience.
I'm going to add to that because I couldn't agree more. I'm going to take community and I'm going to insert the word purpose. People
Mm,
need a reason to get up. And
yes.
I should be an advocate for senior centers. And this is why, I love to use the villages down in Florida as an example.
Okay.
Round the clock programming. That's why some of these over 55 communities have become so popular,
Right.
because you have round the clock programming. Idle minds don't get angry. Idle minds,
Very true.
are healthy. So this idea of having something to do, having a routine.
Right.
Imagine, you spend 40 years every day, you have the same place, you have a routine, you
Right.
retire. Now what? You
Well,
see
that's
really
why
functioning people just plummet.
that's
So this
very
idea
accurate.
of purpose to your community, it's vital. And
Mm,
the problem is that you're then dealing with depression and anxiety
mm,
and fear,
mhm,
because people are introverted. I don't want to go alone. I don't
mhm.
want to go to that senior center alone. What would I want to do that for?
Right.
Because it's going to change your life, and it's going
Right.
to it's going to increase your lifespan, and it's going to help maintain your mental health
Right. And the quality of life.
and your quality of life. So Deborah, can I point out how
Yes.
little of this conversation has to do with law?
Yeah. Isn't it
Isn't
interesting?
it fascinating that elder law is so much
Abs-
more than
Absolutely.
just the statutory documents that we prepare?
And that's why I think it's going to become a much more critical segment of estate and planning in general, even financial planning for that matter. And it's great that you're an expert in that. And to that end, I'd love to talk a little bit about how can people find out about your services, where they can reach you, have a complimentary consultation. I'd love to know a little bit about that, if you would.
That's very kind. You can always find me on my website, balachilaw.com. My telephone number is 516-538-9700. I'm fairly easy to reach. There's an email portal on my website. Consultations are always complimentary, and we're pretty accessible. We try to accommodate all schedules.
That's excellent. And as I understand, you have very much a team approach, as I do. So I have a strategic partner network, and you have a legal network or financial network, and combined.
We do.
I also know you work with a law firm in New York City.
Yes.
So you have resources beyond your own office and practice, which is really very good to know, particularly since New York, as I said in the promotional materials for this event, is one of the most highly taxed in the country. So people need to be their pencils need to be a little sharper in New York than in most states.
Unfortunately, it's the burden we carry being New Yorkers.
As I am one. Yes,
I know you are.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
exactly.
But that's why bringing in the team,
right,
and speaking with the financial advisors and determining budgets and will your money run out?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is such a big question.
I think that's the biggest issue.
And that's the biggest fear, because we're living so long, and retirement pensions have changed, 401k plans have changed, people have lost their 401ks, you know, for company bankruptcies. It's a real worry, and that's why you need everybody involved.
That's great. What I also want to mention is that we have Harold coming back as a featured speaker sometime in the next 3 months. So please take a look at your schedule on my website, our event schedule, and we'll talk about why probate is important and a number of other strategies and techniques that you've used with your clients to really make their lives a lot more calm, together, put together, and it just makes it, as long as you're organized and have your documents and your things in a row, it's so much smoother. Everything is so much easier in your life. And how brilliant.
Can I elaborate on that?
Yes.
I love what you're saying, because the thought is, if you're organized, I like to call it start a family playbook.
Yes.
I want you to sit down. I want you to tell me where your documents are. I want you to itemize where your accounts are. I don't need to know how much you're worth. I don't need to know your passwords. But Deborah, if something happened to you and someone needed to figure out where things were, where are they going to get it? And I've actually locked things away.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be in plain sight. This isn't a coffee table book.
Right.
But if I need to figure out how to pick up where you left off, which drawer in your office should I open? Which file in your file cabinet? I don't want it in your safe deposit box.
Right. Right.
And the other thing
that's so important,
that just is so interesting, is we spend so much of our lives worrying about money, and we fret over the silly, what I perceive to be silly things, cable bills, telephone bills, silly expenses that people are not willing to make, but then they go and die and the money just flies out the window because of their lack of organization.
That's right.
So why be so careful in life and not be prepared in death? If you were so worried, if you were such a, pardon the phrase, if you were such a cheapskate during life, why throw it all out the window when you're dead?
Well, that's exactly right. I just believe strongly, just because I've also lost my parents early on in my life in my 30s, we started creating a playbook, a family overview, if you will. I happen to run 2 companies, so I have to have every duck in a row in case anything happens, of course. And frankly, my estate attorney, our estate attorney, had us do just that. So I have a 2-page document that shares everything you ever wanted to know and were afraid to ask. And it's brilliant. And I love the idea because it's just so clean and everyone's already hurting and just very emotional. It takes the emotion out of the equation, really, and says, oh, cool, Burns has this all together. How fabulous. And it's only because I believe in legacy. And I believe in really making sure that you're leaving a legacy and you're doing the right thing for your heirs. Because my family did that for me. So in homage to them, that's what I do for my family. I think it's important.
It's the right thing to do. And it's better not to be making decisions under emotional strain.
Right.
So if
Exactly.
these things are all planned out, your heirs don't have to guess, what would mom want? What would dad want? It's spelled out.
And the good news is, as a partner to my partners, I actually take my clients through the very documents I created myself. So I help them create financial plans, create estate plan outlines, put these documents together, spending plans. I don't like the word budget. I think it has a horrible connotation. So we do
Yeah.
spending plan. I teach people how to do transformational spending plans, earning plans, investing plans. I'm all about that,
Yeah.
because I feel people don't have the tools to even know how to create them. And once they're in place, oh my God, your life is like a skating rink. You're just skating along smooth as ever and having a blast, you know, not worrying about a thing on solid ice. So I thank you so much for your time today. It's okay. And
Sorry about that.
that's life, you know.
Hey, we got this far with no barking, so
That's okay. Well, that was sort of it. That was
we
just
can work from home with puppies. So
well, that's right. You know, and that's okay, because that's life, and that's what's
it
beautiful
is
about
life.
this.
It could be much worse.
That's okay. Absolutely. So
There's
thank
not
you
a
so
cat on my shoulder.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't have mine at the moment, so believe me, I get it. So thank you so very much for your time today. We look forward to featuring you again for my Financials Freedom Education series coming up in March, April, May, and June. And please do tune in and check out our series Wednesday nights at 5:30 on Zoom. You do have to RSVP on my website, www.literacytolegacymentors.net. We look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you so very much, and have a wonderful day. And by the way, start planning today.
Thank you, Deborah. This was fantastic.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate it. Have a great one.